Let me tell you something. Narcissists operate in a world of illusion. They build a house made of mirrors, not windows. Everything they do is designed to reflect back one thing themselves. The praise, the admiration, the control. It's not about love, it's about validation. They don't connect with people, they collect them like trophies, like tokens of their charm. But what's dangerous is that they believe the illusion they create. They believe they are in control. They believe they're always 10 steps ahead, always the smartest person in the room. In their mind, they are the puppet master and everyone else just strings and wood. They'll charm you with flattery, then confuse you with gaslighting. One moment you're the most amazing person they've ever met, and the next, you're made to feel like you're not enough. And that's the point, that's the cycle. They keep you high enough to crave the praise, but low enough to doubt your worth. It's a psychological trap, one where your reality becomes blurred, your self-respect starts to erode, and your identity becomes wrapped around their opinion of you. See, narcissists don't fall in love with people. They fall in love with control. They don't want a partner. They want a mirror that says, you're right, you're brilliant, you're perfect. And the moment you stop reflecting that, the moment you start showing independence, growth, self-respect, that's when they feel threatened. Because now the puppet is cutting the strings, and they can't handle that. So they tighten their grip, they turn up the manipulation, they shift the blame, they play victim. But here's the truth: control is an illusion. It's a mask worn by fear, and a narcissist fears one thing above all else: losing control over someone who knows their worth. And in that fear, they double down on the illusion. They confuse control with strength, but it's not strength, it's cowardice, because true strength doesn't need domination. It doesn't need praise. It doesn't feed on obedience. True strength is calm, consistent, and humble. Now, most narcissists are not aware of their own patterns. They don't wake up thinking, I'm going to manipulate someone today. No, what they do is react from a wounded place. A place that was never taught how to love, only how to win. And for them, love is a competition, not a connection. Every relationship is a battlefield, and their goal is never peace, it's control. And in this illusion, they believe they're in charge, that they've got the other person hooked, that they can come and go as they please, that they'll always be forgiven, always be desired, always be the center of gravity. They get comfortable in the role of the controller, the admired, the adored, the untouchable. They believe the other person will never walk away, because they've conditioned them to believe they can't. But here's the part they don't see coming. The person they thought was weak was just silent. Not broken observing, not dependent patient, not powerless strategic, and that silence, that's what sets the stage for the shift. Because powerful people don't rush, they don't beg, they don't explode. They learn, they sit still, and they understand exactly what's happening. And the day they decide to leave, it's not explosive. It's surgical, clean, calm, final, and when they go, they take something with them. They take the reflection, the supply, the fuel, and that's when the narcissist is faced with the thing they never expected: emptiness, because the illusion only works when someone else believes in it, when someone feeds it. But now the stage is empty, the applause is gone, the mask falls, and they realize they were never in control. They were just temporarily admired by someone who chose to see their potential, and eventually chose to walk away from their poison. That's the truth of it. The illusion of control dies the moment the other person chooses themselves, and no matter how much the narcissist tries to rewrite the story, paint themselves as the victim, or beg for one more chance, they feel it. Deep down they know they didn't lose someone weak. They lost someone powerful, and that truth, that realization, it's not just painful, it's unforgettable. There comes a moment, a quiet moment, when a narcissist looks around, and they realize the room is empty, the audience is gone. Kindness is often mistaken for weakness. Empathy is mistaken for naivety, and silence, that's too often confused with submission. But here's the truth they never saw coming: the strongest people are not the loudest in the room. They're not the ones demanding attention or swinging their egos around like a weapon. No, the strongest people are the ones who can absorb chaos and still choose peace, the ones who feel deeply, hurt deeply, and still rise with dignity and purpose. Narcissists don't recognize this kind of strength. It confuses them. It slips under their radar, because they're not looking for emotional depth, they're looking for control. They're searching for a reaction, not reflection. So when they encounter someone kind, someone who listens with full presence, someone who forgives with grace and leads with compassion. They assume they've found someone easy to manipulate, someone soft, someone who won't fight back, but they're wrong. See, there's a different kind of power hidden in people like that, a quiet, unshakable power. It's not the kind that needs to dominate a room or prove a point. It's the kind that knows exactly who they are and doesn't need to shout it. People like that don't seek to win arguments, they seek to understand them. They don't lash out, they lean in. They don't hold grudges, they hold lessons. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. Narcissists misread these people because they're measuring power the wrong way. They think power comes from being feared, from being admired, from being in control. But that's not power, that's performance. True power is being able to hold your peace in a storm, to love deeply without losing yourself, to walk away from someone you once adored not out of hate, but out of respect for your own soul. But narcissists don't see that until it's too late. They get so caught up in the game, the manipulation, the gaslighting, the push and pull that they assume the kind-hearted person will never leave. They think the empathy is endless, that forgiveness is automatic, that loyalty is blind, and in the beginning maybe it is, because powerful people, the truly emotionally intelligent ones, they give people chances. They don't judge too quickly. They believe in the good in others, even when it's buried under layers of dysfunction. They see potential where others see problems. They try to help, to heal, to uplift. But what the narcissist doesn't understand is this: there is a limit. Eventually, the kind person wakes up, and when they do, it's not a dramatic scene. It's not fireworks or screaming or slamming doors. No, it's a quiet shift, a decision made in silence long before the goodbye ever leaves their lips. It's the slow reclaiming of boundaries, the return of self-respect, the soft but final pulling back of their heart. And here's the part the narcissist never expected: when that powerful person finally walks away, they don't come back. They don't leave breadcrumbs. They don't stalk your social media or send emotional messages in the middle of the night. They move on not with bitterness, but with clarity, because now they see the truth, and once the illusion breaks, there's no going back. That moment right there is when the narcissist realizes what they've lost. They didn't lose someone gullible. They didn't lose someone weak. They didn't lose someone who couldn't survive without them. They lost someone who chose to stay until they no longer could. They lost someone who saw their pain and tried to love them through it. They lost someone who gave them chances they never earned. They lost someone who treated them better than they knew how to accept. And now that person is gone. The narcissist sits in the wreckage, confused, angry, empty, because they didn't just lose affection, they lost a mirror that reflected back the best parts of themselves. And without that mirror, all that's left are their own shadows, their own wounds, their own emptiness, and for the first time they can't run from it, they can't project it, they can't charm or lie their way out of it. They're forced to face the truth. They underestimated someone who had nothing to prove. That's the tragedy of the narcissist's mind. They believe strength is about control, when real strength is about character. They think kindness is a tool to exploit, when kindness is actually a sign of emotional mastery. And they think silence means surrender, when silence is often the loudest declaration of self-worth. So the next time someone mistakes your grace for weakness, let them think they've got you figured out. Let them believe they're in control. Just smile, stay still, and when the time is right, walk away not for revenge, but for rebirth, because your strength was never in proving yourself to someone who couldn't see you. It was always in knowing when to stop showing up for someone who refused to grow. There's a moment, a very specific moment, when the game ends, when the mask slips, when the story changes not in chaos, but in clarity. It doesn't come with shouting or slamming doors. It doesn't come with threats or ultimatums. No, it comes in silence, a silence so still, so heavy, that it shakes the foundation of the narcissist's world. It's the moment when the person they underestimated finally decides to walk away, and not just physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. They're gone, fully gone, and that moment is a reckoning. Narcissists never think it'll happen. They never see it coming, because they live in a fantasy where they're in control, where the other person is forever attached, forever dependent, forever spinning in circles around them. They believe they have the power because they control the narrative, because they got away with things, because they always manage to pull the strings. And for a while, they're right. The manipulation works. The confusion works. The charm, the guilt trips. The cycles of hot and cold, it all works. Until it doesn't. Because behind the tolerance, behind the compassion, behind all the chances given and all the grace extended, there's a mind observing, a heart learning, a soul calculating the cost, and one day, without a warning, that soul reaches its limit. It's not a reaction, it's a decision, a quiet internal decision to reclaim peace, dignity, and self-respect. And when that decision is made, it's done. There's no going back. No begging, no promises, no dramatic apology can undo the awareness that's taken root. That's the moment the narcissist feels it, the shift. The absence not just of a person, but of access, because access is what they truly crave. Access to your emotions, access to your energy, access to your love, your time, your forgiveness. And when you cut off that access not with hate, but with peace, they're left with the one thing they've spent their whole life running from, themselves. It hits them slowly at first. Maybe they think you're just upset, just playing hard to get. Maybe they expect the cycle to continue, but then the texts go unanswered, the door doesn't open, the energy isn't there, that emotional oxygen they've been breathing in, gone, the mirror they used to see themselves in. Cracked, and suddenly they realize you were never the weak one. You were the strong one, the stable one, the light in the chaos, and now you've taken that light away. In that moment, the narcissist doesn't just lose a person. They lose their mask because their whole identity was built on how you responded to them, how you fed their ego, how you tolerated their behavior, how you stayed through the madness, and now there's no one left to applaud the performance. The stage is empty, the spotlight is off, and the silence, that's the real punishment. Because now, for the first time, they have to sit in the discomfort of their own reality, and they don't know how. They've never learned how to be accountable, they've never learned how to love without control, they've never learned how to connect without conditions. You leaving doesn't just create a void, it exposes one that was always there. This is the awakening. This is when the narcissist realizes they've lost someone powerful, and let me tell you something, that realization hurts. Not because they loved you in the way you loved them, but because they depended on the reflection you gave them. You were their stability, you were their source of meaning, even if they never admitted it. You were the reason they felt important, and now that you've chosen yourself, now that you've said, I deserve better, and meant it, they are left with the truth they ran from their whole life. Without someone to manipulate, they have no identity, but by the time that realization sets in, it's too late. You're already gone, not just in body, but in spirit. Your heart is healing, your mind is free, your energy is no longer scattered across someone else's chaos. You've stepped into a version of yourself that no longer needs permission to feel whole. And no matter how many apologies they try to throw at you, no matter how much they try to act like they've changed you no better, you know who they are, you know what peace feels like now, and you're not about to trade that for another ride on a roller coaster that only goes in circles. So, the moment you walk away not in anger, but in truth, the game ends, the power dynamic flips, and the narcissist finally has to face what they were too arrogant to imagine. The one they thought they had under control was the one who had the strength to end it. And that moment, that's not just a turning point for you, that's the start of your freedom. When a narcissist realizes they've lost someone powerful, their world doesn't fall apart quietly. No, it crumbles in chaos. It shakes under the weight of their own ego. See, narcissists don't process loss like ordinary people. They don't sit with their feelings, reflect, or heal. They react. And when the source of their supply disappears, when that powerful, emotionally intelligent person finally leaves the narcissist spirals, not because they lost love, but because they lost control. And for them, that control was everything. At first, they pretend like they don't care. They'll act cold, detached, maybe even smug. They'll say things like, they'll be back, or they won't find anyone better. That's the denial phase. That's the illusion talking. It's not confidence, it's fear in disguise. Because deep down, they know what's really happening. They feel the absence. They feel the silence. and the one thing narcissists can't handle is silence. It echoes too loud. It reminds them of their emptiness. That's when the regret starts to creep in. But it's not the kind of regret that comes from self-awareness. No, it's not "I hurt them, and I need to change." It's "I lost my grip on them, and now I can't get that control back." They regret the consequences, not the damage. They regret the loss of access, not the pain they caused. And yet, they'll do everything to get it back, because without you, they're left with themselves, and that's the one person they've been avoiding their entire life. The rage comes next, the collapse, the panic. The narcissist starts spinning. They might lash out, spread rumors, play the victim, reach out in desperation, masked as apology, masked as love, masked as change. But understand something, it's not love, it's not growth, it's survival. They're not reaching out because they finally see your value, they're reaching out because they can't function without feeding off of it. They need your forgiveness like a drug. They need your empathy like oxygen, because that's what gave them power in the first place, your kindness, your patience, your ability to love through pain. But now that you're gone, they're exposed, stripped of the false identity they built around your support. They don't know how to function without the emotional mirror you held up, and that realization eats at them. They start to replay every moment, every conversation, every time you forgave them, every time you gave them another chance. And for a moment, just a flicker, they understand what they've lost. They realize they pushed away someone who genuinely cared. Someone who saw the broken pieces in them and still chose to stay. Someone who didn't try to control or change them, just loved them, and they let that go. But instead of using that realization to grow, they use it to fuel the narrative. Because accountability feels like death to a narcissist, admitting fault would mean admitting they're not perfect, not invincible, not superior. So they twist the story. They paint you as unstable, ungrateful, dramatic. Not because it's true, but because they can't sit with the fact that you left them before they were done using you. That rage is their coping mechanism. It's their shield. Because the moment they admit the truth that they lost someone powerful by their own doing, they have to confront their deepest fear, that they are, in fact, replaceable, that someone can walk away from them and never look back, that their charm, their manipulation, their emotional games don't work anymore, and that is the narcissist's collapse, because once you walk away, something shifts, the energy changes, you're no longer orbiting around them. You're not responding to the bait, you're not defending yourself, you're not playing the role they assigned you, you're just gone, and that absence speaks louder than any argument ever could. That's what breaks them. That's what haunts them, not the memory of your pain, but the memory of your power. You see, narcissists never thought you'd leave. They thought your love was their property. They thought your strength was theirs to exploit. But they forgot something important. The same empathy they used against you is the same empathy that gave you the strength to walk away, because powerful people don't stay in chaos. They grow out of it. They rise above it. They heal, and when they heal, they don't come back. So while the narcissist is drowning in regret and rage, you're rebuilding, you're rising, you're learning to love yourself in the way they never could. And in that process, you become even stronger, even more grounded, and that strength, that healing, it's the one thing they can't control, can't manipulate, and can't destroy. And that's what they regret most, not just that you left, but that they'll never have that kind of power in their life again. Not from you, not from anyone like you. Because once a powerful soul walks away, they never walk back. Healing doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't come in one moment of clarity or after a few days of peace. Healing is a journey. It's a quiet, painful, transformative process that unfolds in stages, layer by layer, wound by wound. And when someone finally walks away from a narcissist, that journey begins with confusion, not because they want to go back, but because they're still untangling themselves from the emotional web that was spun around them. See, narcissistic relationships don't just damage your self-esteem, they distort your reality, they make you question your instincts, doubt your worth, and second, guess your truth. That's the real abuse, not just what's done to you, but what it makes you do to yourself. You start to silence your voice just to keep the peace. You start to minimize your needs so you're not labeled too much. You begin to accept the unacceptable because you've been taught that love looks like pain. So when you leave, when you finally break free, you don't just walk away from a person. You walk away from a version of yourself you no longer recognize. You begin the hard work of coming home to your own soul. And that work is not easy. It requires truth. It requires time. And it requires you to unlearn every lie you were told about who you are and what you deserve. The first step in that healing is learning to trust yourself again, to trust your gut, to believe your emotions are valid, your boundaries are sacred, and your needs are not a burden. That takes courage, because you've spent so long walking on eggshells, trying to avoid conflict, trying to stay small. But healing says no more. Healing demands that you reclaim every part of yourself that you were made to feel ashamed of. And here's the beautiful part. Every time you honor your intuition, every time you choose peace over chaos, every time you say no, without guilt, you reclaim a piece of your power. It's subtle at first, like a whisper in the background, but over time it grows louder, stronger, until one day you look in the mirror and see someone you respect. Someone you like. Someone who doesn't need to shrink to be loved. That's when real healing begins. But the narcissist, they don't understand this process. Because they don't heal, they repeat. They recycle the same pain, the same games, the same manipulation with someone new. They're not interested in introspection. They're interested in validation. So while you're doing the hard, internal work of growth, they're still stuck in the same loop, chasing attention and avoiding truth. They might watch you from a distance. They might hear about your progress, and at first they'll pretend they don't care, but deep down they see it. They see you thriving, smiling again, living again. And it eats at them, not because they truly miss you, but because they realize they can't touch you anymore. They can't reach you. You're on a different level now, one they don't know how to access. You become emotionally unavailable to manipulation, spiritually unavailable to toxicity. You're no longer a source of supply, you're a source of strength. And that transformation, that growth, that's what truly breaks the narcissist. Because they never expected you to rise, they expected you to stay broken, to stay stuck, but you didn't. You healed, and healing is the ultimate revenge. Not revenge in the sense of hurting someone back. That's not your path. That's not your energy. No, the real revenge is peace. The real revenge is freedom. The real revenge is waking up in the morning without anxiety, without fear, without walking on mental tightropes just to survive the day. It's smiling without faking it, laughing without flinching, loving again, this time starting with yourself. It's living a life where your boundaries are clear, your standards are high, and your energy is protected. It's not about proving anything to anyone. It's about no longer needing to. You know who you are now. You know what you bring to the table. You know that your love, your loyalty, your empathy, those are gifts, not weaknesses. And now you don't give those gifts away freely. You give them to people who have earned them, who understand them, who know how to hold them without breaking them. That's the fruit of healing. That's the reward. And the narcissist, they don't get to taste it because they chose to misuse what you gave and you chose to grow from what they did. So, while they're stuck chasing new victims, trying to recreate what they lost, you're busy building. Creating, evolving, not from a place of bitterness, but from a place of wisdom. You learn the lesson, you pass the test, and now you get to walk forward not as a survivor, but as a warrior, as someone who didn't just survive the storm, but became the calm after it. That's the journey. That's the power they'll never understand. And that's why they lost you, for good. So now you understand. It was never just about walking away. It was about rising. It was about reclaiming your worth in a world that tried to convince you to forget it. You didn't just leave a narcissist, you left the lies, the manipulation, the emotional prison. You chose you, and that choice wasn't easy. That choice took strength. It took tears. It took nights of silence and mornings of doubt. But you made it, and that's power. The narcissist didn't lose you because you were weak. They lost you because you woke up. Because you saw through the performance, the mask, the illusion, and you chose truth over comfort. You chose healing over havoc. You chose peace over proving your worth to someone who was never capable of seeing it. And now you are no longer waiting to be validated by someone else's brokenness. You are no longer dimming your light to fit into their shadow. You are walking tall, speaking truth, and living free. That's what they lost, not just a person, but a force. A light, a soul too strong to be contained, too wise to be fooled, and too grounded to be controlled. So hold your head high, stand in that power, because healing is not just about moving on, it's about rising above. And the moment they realized they lost you was the moment you truly found yourself. That's your victory, that's your story, and that's your legacy.